So next up, podcast listeners, we have some incredible news and a story called Stop Hiring White Dudes. And I just want to make this clear, ladies and gentlemen. I don't care. And I know by this point in time, if you've never heard this podcast before, you're probably saying, oh my God, what a white supremacist. He's talking about race. I don't care who you put in your movies. Okay? I don't care. I go to a movie based on being entertained, right? Or if I want to go get a job somewhere, it's based on whether I like that kind of work, not necessarily who I'm going to be working with. And so it's the left that keeps pushing these narratives of the movies, but also of the self-flagellation, like you can't hire anyone other than people that are not white. It's just really dangerous, and it is in itself discrimination, and it is wrong. Former commander of U.S. Air Force Civil Air Patrol said, quote, stop hiring middle-aged white people. So the former commander of the Civil Air Patrol, the United States Air Force Auxiliary, okay, he's the commander, the guy in charge, has suggested that Civil Air Patrol officials should just overlook white male applicants, male pilots with age and or experience instead, and embrace instead diversity and being inclusive into their hiring practice. So in other words, don't hire the person who is the best pilot. Hire the person based on the way they look. And ladies and gentlemen, when you get on a plane, and I know we've said this before in Mark and the Millennials, and I said this to someone the other day in the Maryland House of Delegates. When you get on a plane, do you care about the color of the pilot, or or the sex of the pilot, or the sexual preference of the pilot, or do you care about whether the pilot is a great pilot and truly qualified? I'm pretty sure you care that the pilot is highly qualified and a fantastic pilot. Okay, makes sense to me. But in the United States of America, and in particular in the military and in the media and in the entertainment space, as you just heard with Disney, you have individuals who have been engaged in DEI training, and it's really retraining. It's like training camps in China where they are brainwashed into thinking that hiring the most experienced and best and skilled person in a specific field is a bad thing. Instead, the qualification that matters most is the way they look. The same thing applies to doctors. If you've ever been under the knife, that is to say, you've ever been in an emergency room, and you know that you're minutes away from being put under with anesthesia and you're going to be operated on by a surgeon, do you care what the surgeon looks like? No, you don't. You care about whether or not that surgeon is the most qualified surgeon on the planet. And this is the way things have always worked until, of course, the left got in charge. So former commander of the Civil Air Patrol, the U.S. Air Force Auxiliary, has suggested that Civil Air Patrol officials should not hire people who are white. In a video that has since gone viral on social media, Colonel Mark Wooten, who commanded the Civil Air Patrol, United States Air Force from 2019 until April of 2022, apparently received a request for suggestions or guidance. So the Air Force asked him, hey, as the former commander, give us some suggestions and guidance on what we should do and how we should hire people. Because, we think this is important. And so we have a clip from this, ladies and gentlemen. You won't believe it. And here it is.
And, the only really guidance I put out there for them to consider is stop hiring middle-aged white people, especially dudes that are pilots, because honestly, we all think alike too much. And if we're going to be preaching diversity and being inclusive, then for crying out loud, let's back it up with let's make the rhetoric meet the reality.
That's how incredibly clever this guy's language is. We all think alike. That is not true, ladies and gentlemen. People don't think alike based on the way they look. Okay? They just look alike. That's it. And so this gentleman is a complete and utter liar, and he's a complete and utter tool for the CCP as far as I'm concerned, because who else would say that you should hire people based on the way they look, not based on their qualifications, to actually fly and succeed at flying a plane at a high level, like in combat, for example? Well, this guy, of course. And then we have CNN. The host abruptly ends a segment on CNN when a guest whips out the facts about affirmative action's impact on Asian students. So see, this is what's interesting. The discrimination that's happening on the left, it's not just discrimination of what you would think, right? Based on DEI, which is discrimination based on whether or not you're Caucasian or whether or not you are successful financially. No. The discrimination that's coming from the left is about anyone who's having success in society whatsoever, which is what a communist country would do. Let's push down all those people who are successful because we ought not in any way, shape, or form reward merit. No, it's the opposite. We shouldn't reward merit. We should discourage it. That's exactly what the CCP wants. CNN host Abby Phillip ended the segment with a fair admissions advocate on Thursday, when he used facts to demonstrate the downside of affirmative action. Kenny Zhu, a board member for Students for Fair Admissions, the plaintiff in the Supreme Court case, told Phillip that academic excellence, not race, should prioritize in college admissions. Quote, I think admissions should be only based on merit. Why are we asking university to calculate somebody's level of diversity? I think that sets a very bad precedent for anyone trying to get into college. We should be treated on the basis of our merits. We should be treated on the basis of how hard we work, how we study, our SAT scores, our grades. But Phillip pushed back. Phillip being the CNN host. She asked why admissions boards should not consider other factors that students bring to the table, like socioeconomic background. Zhu argued you cannot do that fairly because inevitably admission standards are changed for applicants from a disadvantaged socioeconomic background versus applicants from a privileged background. Quote, we don't want that. We want Black students to succeed. We want every student to succeed. Low-income students to succeed, he pointed out. But you have to put them in scenarios in places where they are likely to succeed. And lowering your standard to admit somebody of a socioeconomic status or race would not help you do that. In fact, you would harm their graduation rate and excellence. Phillip responded that standards aren't lowered, but Zhu held the ground despite Phillip's attempts to interrupt him. The standards are lowered as admissions data shows. Asians have to score 273 points higher, ladies and gentlemen, on an SAT to have the same chance of admissions as someone who is Black, he argued. So the standard is lowered for Black Americans. So, ladies and gentlemen, here's the thing. By the way, abruptly after those facts, the CNN host cut the segment short because she was told in her earpiece by the CNN producers, we can't talk about this anymore. He's making too much sense for our viewers. We must keep our viewers as ignorant as possible. And so the real reason I'm reading this segment is because it is interconnected with the no dwarf zone at Disney, getting rid of Snow White, because now it's Snow Hispanic, but they sure as heck don't want Snow Black. Why? Because it's Disney, right? It'll ruin their brand. Not because the person is Black, by the way, but because Disney would have to rechange the name, and that would ruin the brand that they've spent so many years building. And Disney ultimately cares about their stock price, I guess. And then you have this gentleman who is an Asian advocate on CNN basically saying, look, merit matters. And so all this goes around the same thing. We've talked about this before, namely school choice. If you have school choice in America's inner cities to help individuals who are Black get out of the really failed schools, then they're going to easily do well in these private schools, especially private boarding schools, so they can get up and out of their communities where there's rampant crime and prostitution and drugs, and they can be put into environments where they actually have an opportunity for success. In fact, they would have an opportunity for success far greater than almost anyone else. I think I'm all for that. Okay? Give them that opportunity. But the left doesn't want them to succeed through merit. They want to continue to play this race war, which is so dangerous. And the thing is you can be such a principled person in America by wanting to help those who need the help. They need a hand up. They need a leg up. And I'm definitely one of those persons, but not by getting rid of merit, ladies and gentlemen. That's what the CCP wants. Because then you no longer have the rule of law. You no longer have rules at all. It's then, at that point, only based on any kind of advancement in the United States. It's based on the way you look, or the way you think, or who you know. Not based on what you know.